Welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storm, and I help private practice owners align their business back with their soul's calling, with their big vision and with their soul's purpose. Unlike other private practice coaches, I've traveled the world in search of spiritual resources, spiritual tools, education and information so that you can have the transformation that your soul desires and needs so that you can up-level your business. How much fun is this? I love it so much. Guys, if you're not already a member of the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group, please check out the show notes. I would love for you to be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Good morning, everybody. How are you going? Happy Saturday. Thank you so much for pushing play on another episode today. And of course, welcome to the new subscribers. So what I would love to start with is, first of all, just checking that you're getting my email. So for those of you who have subscribed to the products and the offers and all the freebies and things like that on the website, which you can find at www.resources.brooklynstorm.com. You will be receiving emails from me every Monday. And in these emails, we do like a bit of a update so that if you have missed things during the week, you can catch them on the Monday. So if you're not getting that, let me know and I can absolutely add you to the list. There was some great stuff that went out this week. Plus, there's also opportunities for you to share your stories, promote your business, share your products, share your free offers with our community. It's a great way to get exposure and build your audience with like-minded people, you know. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. My email address is in the show notes, as you know. So today, interesting topic. Today I want to talk with you from a place of the highest good. So I think I touched on values recently. It's on my mind lately because I'm working with some of the women in the method about their values at the moment. And it's causing me to reflect on mine. But one of my values that I use to guide my business is that of operating from a perspective of the highest good, right? So I try and do things in my business, and what I'll do is have a look at each of those values, and if I remember to do it, I will, get in that mind space or in that frame of reference about, okay, how could I approach this situation from the highest good? And so I'm just going to use this as my framework actually for what I want to talk with you about today, which is people pleasing in private practice. And I know this is going to be a hard topic for some of us to hear, but I'm hoping that it's also going to be a helpful topic because this is very private, I know, and it's very sensitive. I appreciate that, but I want you to understand that there are reasons why it's happening, and there are absolutely tools available to you when you're ready that you can start to tap into, both for accessing inner wisdom and inner guidance, but also accessing support networks from the 3D world, from the world around us. So the reason that this has come up also is because I'm seeing it a little bit more lately in some of the groups that I'm in. It seems, and it shows, it manifests in all different ways, this people-pleasing behavior. So it's like people not having boundaries in place. For example, not switching off at 5 o'clock. They're going home and they're still working, or they're still on Facebook working, not for fun. Or they're letting clients get away with things that maybe they shouldn't be. They're getting tired and depleted and run down themselves. And also they feel like there's a lot of pressure on them to be, super responsive to queries, whether it's from clients or third parties. And what's happening is it's putting more pressure on them, and it's causing them to start to feel a little bit resentful or tired, or, people are talking at the moment, although it's only February, about already beginning to feel as if they're burning out. So I think people pleasing, and I'm sure there are lots of different names for it, but let's just call it that for the sake of this podcast today, is really when we start to base our sense of worth and our sense of esteem or our well-being on what others often think about us or how other people that are important to us feel about us. And it's actually, contrary to what we're trying to live and embody as soul-centered women in private practice, isn't it? Because we all believe in empowerment, and what's happening is when we're embodying people-pleasing behaviors, it's actually very disempowering, not only for people around us, but it's also really disempowering for ourselves. And the reason for that is because it's based in rejection, isn't it? Our self-worth and our self-esteem is now determined by our ability to keep everybody else happy. And so you might even, if you don't relate to this as a, solo practitioner, or as a woman in private practice, perhaps you have heard about it with your clients. Perhaps they say things to you like they put everybody first. And there'll be some people that say that, and quite often it's women, isn't it? There are men too, but I think in my experience it's been more often women. And sometimes they'll tell me this and they'll smile when they tell me. And there'll be other times when they tell me that they put everybody first and there's no time for themselves, and that's why they couldn't do their 15-minute meditation that I set them as homework. But they'll say that with sort of a downcast expression. And so what we see here is a little bit of a polarity in how people feel about engaging in that people-pleasing behavior. And I think in its most extreme form, would you agree that it's also kind of, approaching martyrdom in a way, isn't it? Like people adopting that sort of martyr archetype. If you don't know whether or not you're engaging in people-pleasing behaviors, there are a few telltale signs. And, I've listed, how many have I got? 8. So I'll just go through them now and see how many of these you can identify with for yourself, okay? And if it's not for you, then maybe think about, clients that come through with this. And these are not in any particular order, by the way. But the first one I have here is that you try really hard to be seen as doing the right thing all the time, right? So you're like, Lisa Simpson of The Simpsons, who wants to be assessed and graded all the time because that's how she gets her approval. She gets her approval for being a good student. So it's like you want to be a good therapist or a good business owner. So you want to do everything you can to make sure that you're getting all of that positive feedback only. And when you don't get that positive feedback, that really hurts. And sometimes it can really hurt even if that feedback is constructive. So that's the first one. The second one is a feeling of a constant awareness or a constant tuning in to how people are feeling about you in the moment. And this really impacts you so deeply. The third one is that you tend to keep your opinions to yourself, even when you disagree with what people around you are saying, okay? And again, that's because you want to be seen as agreeable, you want to be fitting in, you want to be going along with the status quo, you want to be pleasing in terms of what you say. And so to disagree could put you on the outer, and you're very uncomfortable being on the outer. That means for you that you're not liked, or you're not respected, or you're not appreciated, or likable, or something like that perhaps. And the fourth one that I have is that for people who really find themselves in that people-pleasing space, one of the very hardest things to manage in running a business is the process of making decisions. So there's a lot of to and froing. It's a lot of, let's say you get quotes for having something done in the business. Maybe you get quotes off subcontractors for an assessment, or quotes off cleaners or something like that. You've got these 3 quotes. You know which quote you want to go with, but it's hard to make that decision because you don't want to offend the other 2 people. And what if it doesn't work out with this one who you have chosen, and da 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 da. And it kind of goes on like that. Making decisions to you means that, by definition, a decision means that there's going to be a right thing and a wrong thing, or a good thing and a bad thing, or however you want to define it. But there's two ends of the stick, as Abraham Hicks would say. There's two ends of the stick. And so by you choosing one end of the stick, you know that there's going to be the opposite end of the stick, and that's what you're trying to avoid. But here's the thing, you can't avoid that because everything in science and everything in the world has an opposite, right? But you're just trying your best to avoid that. Another one is perhaps you experience a strong need for external positive regard. It's like almost ever present. Without this positive regard, you can also end up questioning your worth. And so what that positive regard can look like is, simple things like feedback from clients after a session. Like, isn't it so nice when they say to you, wow, I got so much out of it today? Or, if you're a coach, it feels really good to you when your clients give you that sort of, really positive feedback about, what a great coach you are, or how you really supported them, or how they had a light bulb moment and things like that. But at the same time, the absence of those things makes you question whether you're good enough. Was my coaching good enough? Was my therapy good enough? Was my supervision good enough? If it was good enough, then surely somebody would have told me it was good enough. And so the absence of that means I must be horrible at what I'm doing. And then we kind of snowball from there. And what happens is our focus becomes on the absence of external positive regard. And then what happens is our brain filters experiences of the absence of external positive regard. Right? So we start to see more and more and more, because you remember, what we focus on grows, what we focus on expands. We see more of what we're focusing on. So if you're focusing on people aren't giving me this feedback, then you'll get more of people not giving you the feedback, which is then going to create a loop for you that reinforces this idea that maybe you're doing something wrong, or you're not good enough, or etc. Sorry, I'm talking really quickly again today. I know. Okay. This is a good one, this next one. So this is the sixth one. You find yourself affirming other people's opinions even when you disagree. That's kind of like the last one. So we're seeing a lot of this at the moment. And do you know, I saw this on some training that I did yesterday. So look, I'll be completely transparent with you here. I've only been able to watch 10 minutes of this training. I signed up for a program on consciousness and conscious creation, and I was super excited about it. Couldn't wait to do it. I purchased it over Christmas. And so, I was like really excited. There was this big build up to it, and there were lots of different workshops in this training. And one of them was about, tuning into your body, which, as you probably have gathered, I'm all about at the moment. I love learning about the somatic experience of spirituality and inner guidance and things like that. So I wanted to learn more so that I could share it with you. And then the workshop that I wanted to see was happening yesterday. I started to watch it and felt very triggered by it. And so, I didn't end up watching the rest. And what I could see was, before we even got this training, we received an email, and in the actual training portal itself, there was like a 2 or 3 page handout that we had to sign off to confirm we had read it and that we agreed to it before we even showed up for this workshop. And the agreement was that, hey, this is going to be triggering content, but if you feel triggered, don't talk about it, and don't say anything unpleasant, because that'll upset other people and that'll be offensive to them. And, even if you don't agree with it, you have to sit with it, because this content affects everybody, and maybe you just can't see it for yourself yet. And so it had kind of been set up right from the beginning, to me, to be very, very disempowering. It's like, I'm going to go and watch this training that I signed up for, that I was really interested in, and now you're telling me I'm not allowed to question it. I'm not allowed to ask questions. I'm not allowed to, obviously criticize it, but I would never criticize anything. That's not true. I criticize stuff for my clients when they ask me to, but I don't openly criticize things. So it was just like we were being shut down. And the whole point of this topic was about helping people have voices. So that felt very incongruent to me. So it put my hackles up before I even joined. And then when I did join the training, as I said, I could only stay on it for 10 minutes because people were getting triggered right from the beginning. And people were trying to comment. That was getting shut down. They were getting told they couldn't speak. Anyway. And the other thing that I noticed was that very quickly people started to not comment, which upset me because I want people to have a voice. And so I was reflecting on how I felt about people not being able to comment. So it was on Zoom. Yeah, but we weren't allowed to comment anymore in the comments box. And then the other thing that I saw was from, just in the 10 minutes I was there, once we got told not to comment if you were going to say A, B, C, D, and E, what started happening was we only got comments that were affirming what the speaker was saying. And that didn't sit very well with me either because, it's my understanding that this session was getting recorded. And so I don't know. I'm just like, my brain is going wild here, but I'm just thinking, well, maybe that's going to be misleading for future participants who end up watching, or purchasing the recordings instead of paying for the live, because they're only going to see all these affirming positive comments coming up. But that's upsetting to me because it's not a true representation of what was actually happening in the session. And so, I didn't like seeing that people were feeling like, they wanted to contribute, they wanted to participate, but they were only allowed to do that if they were affirming what the speaker was saying. So that was really difficult to sort of sit back and watch. The seventh one we've got here is boundaries being super difficult to implement when you're in that people-pleasing frame of mind. And, once you do get to the point where you can put a boundary in place, like, it takes you so much strength and so much courage to get there. And you need usually a lot of support. You need a cheerleader in your corner to tell you, yes, you are doing the right thing and to affirm that for you. And you put the boundary in place and you feel so hesitant about it perhaps. And then what happens is the next time someone goes to move that boundary or push that boundary, if you're a people pleaser, you're going to let them push it and you're going to make exceptions, and you'll do that for all sorts of reasons. But mostly it'll come back to not wanting to upset them, because if they're upset, maybe that means they're not going to like you or there'll be some big consequence. So, and then what else have I got? Oh, the last one that I have here is when you do say no to somebody, you follow it up with excessive apologizing. And maybe even, like, I used to do this too, so don't stress if you're in this place now. But I was a big people pleaser years ago. But the other thing I used to do was I would say, no, I'm really sorry. And I would genuinely feel so bad that I couldn't accommodate them, because I would have if I could have, even if it meant, me postponing something that was important to me, I still would have. So it was very rare that this happened, but when it did, I felt so bad and I felt so guilty and like I was really letting them down, that I would then say, I'll make it up to you. I will give you a pro bono session. I will stay back late for you. I don't normally work on Saturdays, but I can come in for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would say stuff like that. And I know some of you do stuff like that too. Not all of you, but some of you do, yeah. So they're kind of 8 little indicators, and I'm sure you can think of your own different ones as well. But this is just to kind of build your awareness around whether or not you might be engaging in this behavior. And I would just like you to really think about what this looks like for you in your private practice. So, I mean, if you're trying super hard to be seen as doing all the right things all the time in your private practice, what impact is that having on how you show up in the business? I mean, are you feeling really stressed? For example, are you, I don't know, some people use the word perfectionist, but are you taking a long time to get things done because you want to make sure that everything's done right versus imperfect action? And how, if so, how is that affecting what's going on for you in the practice? If you're constantly aware about how people feel about you, and if you're impacted deeply by how people feel about you and you're running a private practice, how is this showing up in the practice? I wonder if you have contractors, for example, or employees, how's this showing up when you've got to performance manage them? Or how's it showing up in terms of you setting meetings and then not following those meetings up, or you not setting agendas, or you setting tasks for people to do and then not following up to make sure that they're getting done. And then when they're not getting done, you're getting upset and you say to yourself, well, if she liked me, she would have done it. Think about how keeping your thoughts to yourself, even when you disagree with your team, is impacting on your practice. Now, of course, there are going to be times when this is okay, and maybe it's in the highest good that we do bite our tongues and we do things like choose our battles. But if this is happening a lot, maybe now might be a time to reflect on how this is affecting your interactions with clients, or your interactions with admin, or your interactions with your team. If decision making is really hard for you, because you don't want to upset anybody, how is not making decisions affecting the practice? How is stalling and procrastinating affecting the practice? I just wonder if by you taking a long time to make a decision, is that affecting your cash flow? Is that affecting, money coming into the practice? Or is that affecting your stress levels? Or is that affecting the workload of people around you and things like that? Thinking about having a need for that external positive regard in your practice, how does that affect you in things like team meetings? Like, are you kind of setting things up so you get some feedback? Are you having an open door policy? Are you having a suggestion box in your practice and encouraging feedback? Are you motivated by encouraging feedback? Or are you coming at it from a place of fear and you're saying, oh, please let me know whatever I can do better or whatever I can do to improve, because I want to make this the best practice ever, not realizing that everybody has a different idea of what a good practice is, and that you'll twist yourself into a pretzel trying to accommodate everybody. There's got to be that healthy balance, doesn't there, between trying to be professional and trying to please and over what's the word? Over pleasing. Okay. And what about having boundaries in your private practice? Like, if you're working in a therapist role and you're doing direct client work, I mean, how do you feel? Like, do you have boundaries in place? Like, you probably have, you should have, hopefully, policies in place for the practice that govern your availability, for example. So what happens then when a client does send you a text message at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, or 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning? How are you handling that? Are you just kind of letting it go? Are you reaffirming your boundaries? Are you saying, please, I'll respond to you on Monday? Of course, setting aside any emergencies. Like, if it's an emergency, of course, that's different. But if it's just a client wanting to know when their next appointment is and they're texting you at 7:30 on a Friday night, are you responding to that or not? Or do you wait until Monday morning and respond to them then? These are really fantastic opportunities for you to model the sort of behavior that you expect and you desire from your clients. And thinking too about when you say no to a client, maybe they say, I really want an after hours appointment and you don't have any left, or, you only work 2 days a week and you're fully booked on those 2 days for the next month or so, but you've got this client who you really like working with and they're begging for an after hours appointment. What do you do in that situation? What's your normal reaction? Do you accommodate that? Or are you going to stick to your boundaries and say, well, no, I don't have an after hours appointment for the next 3 or 4 weeks, but I can book one in for after that. And if one becomes available sooner, I can let you know. I mean, how are you handling that? And what effect is it having on your practice? And also thinking too, like just using my lens here of, my value of trying to work in the highest good. Is it empowering for your team, and is it empowering for your clients, and is it in their highest good for you to be people pleasing? I mean, put yourself in their situation, in their shoes for a moment, and just ask yourself, what would it be like to work for somebody that was a people pleaser? I mean, would you feel like they were a bit of a pushover? Would you feel like what they said didn't really have any true authority behind it? Would you feel like if they gave you a deadline, it didn't really matter because you could get away with doing it late or not even doing it at all? And what would that do to your morale? I mean, if you didn't have somebody following through on boundaries and checking in with you and making sure things were getting done, would you feel like you were valued? And would you feel like you're a true member of the team and things like that? So if any of this is resonating with you, there are a couple of ways that you can start to release this shadow side. And some of those can include looking at how this people-pleasing behavior is helping you to perhaps avoid something else in your world. I know that's a big one to think about, isn't it? Like, how is this behavior helping me to avoid something else? Like, there has to be, if you think about behavioral psychology, there has to be something that's reinforcing this behavior. So identifying what that is can be really, really helpful. Another thing that you can do is perhaps thank yourself or thank your soul for bringing this to your awareness now and, helping it rise within you so that it can be explored and addressed. You can explore how the practice would be different without people-pleasing behavior. Like, how would it be different for clients in terms of boundaries, in terms of them feeling empowered, and in terms of you being able to model for them expected behaviors? How would it be different, for your finances if you are able to release people-pleasing behavior? So if somebody's saying to you, I don't have enough money on my card to pay the invoice today, can I get it to you next time? And you say yes, how's that affecting your business? And if they come back the next time for their next appointment and they still haven't paid that previous appointment, where does that leave you? Because now they're going to be 2 appointments in the red. And thinking about how the practice would be different when you're able to release people pleasing for your time. Like, surely a lot of us got into this business so that we could have more time to do the things that are important and meaningful to us, like spend time with the kids, do school drop-offs and pickups, or, go for our walks in the afternoon and those kinds of things. But think about how people-pleasing is impacting your time at the practice and what your time could look like if you're able to drop some of that people-pleasing behavior. And then lastly, maybe try and identify where this behavior originated in the first place and really check in with yourself and ask, whose pattern is this? Where did I first pick this up? And is this a pattern that served me in the past? And is it serving me now? And is it something I'm truly ready to release now? And if I did, as we said before, start thinking about what would that look like? I mean, to take this further, we've only really, I've gone through it very quickly. I've only just obviously touched the tip of the iceberg. But if this is something that's resonating with you and you want to unpack it a little bit further, then I'd absolutely recommend that you get some one-to-one support, because there are so many benefits to having someone to sit with that can hold that sacred space for you, where you can actually do the work, that deep inner work, and finally release some of these old patterns. So if that sounds like you, then I would love to invite you to book a session, and I'll put the link in the comments below. I want to thank you so much for joining me for another session. Have a beautiful Saturday, everybody, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye. Thank you you so much for listening to this episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast today. If you're looking for clarity, if you need help with branding, your processes, and bringing everything into alignment with your soul's purpose for your private practice, head to the show notes and click the link for more information about the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group. You are going to love it. I can't wait to see you in there. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.